The bank teller's face went ghost white when my grandmother's check cleared for $2 million. Ma'am, she whispered, leaning across the counter, are you absolutely sure about the source of these funds? I didn't understand the question. Not until I got the call that Grandma Patricia was dead. And my phone started exploding with messages from family members I hadn't heard from in years. Messages that all said the same thing. You're going to prison. Let me rewind to Christmas Eve, 4 days earlier, because that's when my entire life detonated. I'm Willow Reed, and up until 72 hours ago, I was a completely unremarkable 28-year-old drowning in student debt, living off top ramen and client revisions, working 16-hour days from a studio apartment in Bushwick that smelled permanently of the Thai restaurant downstairs. My family liked to remind me I was the artistic failure, the one who chose design school over law school, who drove a beat-up 2009 Honda Civic while my siblings leased Teslas, who still bought groceries with careful mental math at the checkout. So when my phone rang that Tuesday morning with my mother's number, a woman who usually communicates exclusively through passive-aggressive forwards of real estate listings in more respectable neighborhoods, I knew something was off. Your grandmother insists on Christmas Eve dinner at the estate, she said, her voice dripping with obligation. She's being difficult. We need you there to keep her calm. Translation, they needed a buffer, someone to absorb Patricia's confusion while they suffered through the mandatory family appearance. I should have known then, should have recognized the trap being set. But I just saw an excuse to see Grandma Patricia, the one person who never made me feel like I was auditioning for my place at the table. I had no idea I was driving toward the most savage inheritance game ever played, or that by the time New Year's rang in, half my family would be hiring lawyers to throw me in jail, and the other half would be pretending they never knew me at all. Before we dive into how this family war played out, can we talk about how quick people are to judge someone as confused the second they do something unexpected? If you've ever been underestimated or dismissed by family who thought they knew better, hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and subscribe because this story gets wild. Trust me, you'll want to see how Patricia's trap unfolds. Turn on notifications. This is just the beginning. The phone call came at 7:43 a.m. on a Tuesday, which should have been my first warning. My mother never called before noon unless someone died or she needed something, and since she opened with "Willow, darling," a term she'd never used in 28 years, I knew this was going to cost me. Your grandmother insists on Christmas Eve dinner at the estate, Diane said, her voice carrying that particular strain she reserved for discussing Patricia, root canals, and my career choices. She's being difficult again. We need you there to keep things civil. Translation. Grandma Patricia was off script, and they needed their designated family disappointment to run interference while they performed their annual obligation. I was the emotional support failure, there to absorb whatever confusion Patricia displayed so Ryan could check his Tesla stocks and Vanessa could get her content. What time? I asked, already knowing I'd go. Patricia was the only person in that family who'd ever looked at me like I was something other than a cautionary tale about following your dreams. 6 o'clock. Don't be late. And Willow, her voice sharpened, please try to look presentable. I glanced down at my paint-stained sweatpants and the Ramones t-shirt I'd slept in. I'll wear my formal sweatpants. She hung up without saying goodbye, which honestly saved us both time. The drive from Brooklyn to Patricia's Connecticut estate took 2.5 hours in my 2009 Honda Civic, which I'd named Lazarus because it had died and been resurrected more times than I could count. The check engine light had been on since 2017. The passenger window only rolled down halfway. The air conditioning was a myth we'd stopped believing in around the Obama administration. But she was mine, paid for in cash from a summer of waiting tables, and she'd never made me feel like I was auditioning for my existence. The contrast hit me the second I turned into Patricia's circular driveway. Ryan's matte black Tesla Model X sat gleaming near the fountain like a spaceship that had landed to study primitive life forms. Vanessa's white Range Rover, a push present from her tech bro husband Tyler, because apparently surviving childbirth now came with luxury prizes, was parked at an angle that somehow still looked Instagram worthy. My parents' Mercedes sedan occupied the spot closest to the door, naturally, because Charles Reed's time was worth more than yours. I parked Lazarus behind the gardener shed like I was hiding evidence of a crime, which in this family driving a car from the Bush administration basically was. The front door opened before I could knock. Patricia's housekeeper, Mrs. Kowalski, pulled me into a hug that smelled like pine needles and vanilla. "She's been asking for you all week," she whispered, which made my throat tight because I knew none of the others had visited since Thanksgiving, and even that had been a drive-by appearance for the Instagram story. The dining room looked like something from Architectural Digest's Connecticut Elegance issue, all dark wood paneling, crystal chandeliers, and a table long enough to land a small aircraft. Patricia sat at the head, an emerald velvet dress that probably cost more than my rent. Her white hair swept up in a style that belonged in a 1940s film. At 86, she looked like Money and Secrets had a baby and sent it to finishing school. Ryan barely glanced up from his phone when I entered, though I caught the micro-expression of judgment when he clocked my thrift store blazer over a black dress I'd owned since college. Vanessa, heavily pregnant and glowing with that specific sheen that comes from weekly facials and not having to work, gave me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Willow, oh my God, I love that vintage look you're doing. Very Brooklyn. My mother's face performed a complicated equation of disappointment and resignation. My father nodded once, the way you'd acknowledge a waitress bringing water you didn't ask for. "Willow," Patricia's voice cut through the tension like a champagne cork. "Come sit by me, darling. You look wonderful." I did not look wonderful. I looked like someone who'd spent $40 at Buffalo Exchange and called it four-hole aware, but Patricia patted the chair beside her with a smile that held something I couldn't quite read. Mischief, maybe, or satisfaction, like she knew a punchline the rest of us hadn't heard yet. Dinner was the usual performance. Ryan talked about his company's latest funding round in tones normally reserved for describing Nobel Prize-winning research. Vanessa documented every course on Instagram stories with captions like, "Grammy's table never disappoints. Arrow, blessed. Family time, heirloom china." Tyler, Vanessa's husband, laughed too loud at my father's jokes. My mother picked at her salmon and made comments about how quaint Brooklyn must be. I pushed potatoes around my plate and tried to become invisible, a skill I'd perfected over 30 years of these dinners. Then Patricia stood up. The room went quiet with that particular silence that means someone important is about to speak. She was holding a stack of cream-colored envelopes, each one thick and formal, the kind of paper stock that whispers money when you touch it. "I have gifts for everyone," Patricia announced, her voice steady and clear. "Early Christmas presents." My mother's face flickered with barely concealed greed. Ryan's head snapped up from his phone like a dog hearing a treat bag. Even Vanessa stopped mid-story post, probably already planning the caption about Grammy's generosity. Patricia walked around the table with ceremonial slowness, placing an envelope in front of each person. Charles, Diane, Ryan, Vanessa, Tyler, and finally me. My name was written across the front in Patricia's elegant cursive. "Open them together," she instructed, settling back into her chair with that same mysterious smile. I slid my finger under the flap. Inside was a check, printed on heavy bank stock with Patricia's name embossed at the top. The amount line read, $2 million and 00100. My brain short-circuited. This had to be a joke. Some kind of symbolic gesture about the value of family, or... Ryan's laughter detonated across the room like a grenade. "Grammy, what the hell is this?" $2 million, Patricia said simply, "for each of you." "Grammy," Vanessa's voice dripped with performative concern, the kind she used in her mental health awareness posts. "Sweetie, are you feeling okay? This check isn't... I mean, you know this isn't real, right?" Oh my God! Ryan was already recording on his phone, unable to resist documenting what he clearly thought was prime content. Mom, Dad, we need to talk about memory care. This is. Grammy, when did you write these? Did someone help you? My father picked up his check with the clinical detachment of a doctor examining symptoms. Mother, these account numbers, this bank closed your trust accounts years ago after the Davenport investment situation. The Davenport situation. That was the elegant way my family referred to Patricia losing substantial money in a friend's failed real estate development. They'd been dining out on that story for 5 years, proof that Patricia's judgment had slipped, that she wasn't sharp like she used to be. This is so sad, Vanessa whispered, loud enough for her phone to catch it. I could already see the Instagram caption forming behind her eyes. When your grandmother's mind starts to go, broken heart. Alzheimer's awareness, family struggles. It's fake, Grammy, Ryan said slowly, like he was talking to a child. These checks aren't real. You understand that, right? Patricia just smiled. That same knowing, mysterious smile that had been unsettling me all evening. Ryan, fully committed to the bit now, held his check up to his live stream camera. Folks, this is what happens when we don't have these conversations early enough. My grandmother just handed out fake checks for $2 million each because she thinks. He tore the check in half, then in half again. The pieces fluttered onto his bread plate like confetti at the world's most depressing party. Ryan! I gasped, but he was already laughing. What? It's not real, Willow. Jesus, don't be so dramatic. He swept the pieces into his palm and dropped them into his water glass with a flourish. There, that's what I think of Grammy's Monopoly money. Vanessa was already posting, her fingers flying across her phone. I could see the screen from where I sat. Grammy had a senile moment at dinner tonight and handed out fake checks for $2M each, getting her into proper care ASAP, #eldercarecrisis. Charles folded his check precisely and placed it beside his plate. Mother, tomorrow we're scheduling an appointment with Dr. Harrison. This kind of confusion is exactly what we've been concerned about. My mother looked like she wanted to cry from embarrassment. Patricia, sweetheart, why don't we finish dinner and we can talk about this later? There's nothing to talk about, Patricia said serenely. Those are gifts. Do with them what you will. Ryan was still live streaming. Tyler had already crumpled his check into a ball. Vanessa was updating her story. Even my parents had abandoned their checks on the table like contaminated evidence. I looked down at mine. $2 million, signed in Patricia's distinctive hand, dated 3 days ago. The check felt substantial in my fingers, real in a way that my family's mockery felt increasingly wrong. But what did I know? I was the artistic failure who bought groceries with mental math. Maybe they were right. Maybe this was Patricia's mind finally cracking under the weight of 86 years and too much loss. Well, Charles announced, standing and dropping his napkin on his abandoned plate, I think that's enough excitement for one evening. But we haven't even had dessert, Patricia said mildly. I have an early meeting, Ryan said, already heading for the door. Phone still recording. This has been enlightening. Vanessa followed, murmuring sympathetic platitudes about getting Grammy's help and not letting her be alone with finances. Tyler trailed behind her like a designer-clad shadow. Within minutes, the only sounds were expensive engines starting in the driveway and the tick of Patricia's grandmother clock in the hallway. My parents left with barely a goodbye, my mother kissing the air near Patricia's cheek and promising to call about Dr. Harrison. And then it was just me and Patricia and Mrs. Kowalski clearing plates in the kitchen. You stayed, Patricia said softly. I figured someone should help clean up, I replied, gathering wine glasses with shaking hands. Patricia's hand closed over mine, cool and papery and surprisingly strong. You kept yours. I looked down. The check was still in my blazer pocket where I'd tucked it, unable to throw it away, even if it was fake, even if it was evidence of Patricia's deteriorating mind, because Patricia had written my name on it, had thought of me. It's not real, right? Patricia's smile was enigmatic as a Mona Lisa. I suppose you'll have to decide that for yourself, darling. She squeezed my hand once, deliberately, her eyes bright and sharp and completely present. "Thank you for staying. That's all I ever wanted to know." I drove home that night with the check burning a hole in my pocket and Patricia's words echoing in my head. The whole thing felt like a fever dream. The checks, the cruelty, that knowing smile. My family group chat was already exploding with messages about next steps and intervention and whether they should involve adult protective services. I stared at that check for 3 days, kept it on my bathroom counter while I brushed my teeth, propped it against my coffee machine while I waited for the ancient machine to wheeze out caffeine, studied it like it might suddenly sprout footnotes explaining what the hell just happened. On December 27th, I opened my banking app, took a photo of the check, hit deposit, and waited for it to bounce. The check lived on my bathroom counter for 3 days like a house guest I didn't know how to ask to leave. I'd stare at it while brushing my teeth, Patricia's signature mocking me in elegant cursive. $2 million. The number looked more fictional every time I read it, like someone had written $1 gazillion or all the money in Narnia. My rational brain, the part that had survived 28 years of being the family disappointment, knew it was fake, had to be fake. Patricia had lost money in bad investments. My father had said so. Ryan had literally torn his up on live stream to 40,000 viewers. Vanessa's Instagram story about Grammy's senile moment had gotten 12,000 likes and 36 comments offering recommendations for memory care facilities. But my irrational brain, the part that remembered Patricia teaching me to play chess when I was 7 and telling me, "The queen is the most powerful piece. Never forget that," kept whispering, "What if?" On December 26th, I held the check over my trash can for a full minute. My finger hovered over the pedal that would open the lid. I could throw it away, forget Christmas Eve ever happened, go back to my regularly scheduled poverty without this weird hope-shaped thing taking up space in my head. I couldn't do it. On December 27th at 2:47 p.m., I opened my banking app. My checking account balance was $184.23, which was actually pretty good for 3 days before rent was due. I'd done the mental math at the grocery store twice that week, put back the name brand peanut butter, bought the dented cans from the discount bin. This was my life. This was reality. The check was fantasy. I took the photo anyway. My hand shook so badly the first attempt was blurry. The second caught a glare from my apartment's terrible lighting. The third was perfect. Every number visible, Patricia's signature clear as a bell, and the bank routing information crisp against the cream paper. I hit deposit and immediately felt like an idiot. The app made its little whooshing sound, cheerful and oblivious. Deposit submitted. Funds typically available in 1 to 3 business days pending verification. Right. Pending verification that this was a real check from a real account with real money. None of which was true because my grandmother had been handing out Monopoly money, and my entire family had tried to tell me so. I threw my phone on the couch and tried to work. Had a logo design due for an organic dog treat company called Positive Vibes that was already 2 days late, but I couldn't focus. Kept picking up my phone to check the app like it might suddenly display a message. LOL, did you really think this was real? Your family was right. You are the dumb one. At 6:23 p.m., my phone buzzed. Deposit accepted. $2 million will be available in your account on 12/28. I stopped breathing. Read it again. Deposit accepted. $2 million. Available tomorrow. My hands went numb. This was a glitch. Had to be a glitch. banks didn't just accept $2 million checks from confused old ladies without verification or holds or whatever the hell banks did when someone who usually deposited $300 freelance payments suddenly submitted a check with 7 zeros. I called the bank's customer service line, got a cheerful recorded voice telling me my wait time was approximately 37 minutes. Hung up. Called again. Same message. On the third attempt, I actually waited, pacing my apartment in tight circles while hold music played a jazzy elevator version of All I Want for Christmas. Thank you for calling. This is Deshawn. How can I help you today? There's been a mistake. I deposited a check and it says it's accepted, but it can't be real. I need to. What's the amount of the check, ma'am? $2 million. Silence. Long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Ma'am, I'm going to transfer you to our fraud department. The line went dead before I could respond. I tried calling back 4 more times, got disconnected twice, stuck in hold limbo for 40 minutes once, and finally gave up when someone answered and immediately asked for my social security number in an accent that sounded suspiciously like a scam call center. I tried Patricia's cell, straight to voicemail. You've reached Patricia Reed. I'm unavailable at the moment, but do leave a message and I'll return your call when I'm able. When I'm able. The phrase caught in my throat like a fishbone. Grammy, it's Willow. The check, something weird happened. Can you call me back? Please. I tried the estate's landline. It rang 17 times before I gave up. Texted Mrs. Kowalski. Is Grammy okay? Need to talk to her. Important. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, then nothing. At 9:15 p.m., I did something I hadn't done in 4 years. I called Ryan. What? He answered. No hello, just irritation. Have you talked to Grammy since Christmas Eve? Why would I? Look, Willow, if this is about those fake checks, I don't have time for mine cleared. Silence. Then a laugh that sounded like breaking glass. Bullshit. I'm looking at my bank app right now. It says $2 million will be available tomorrow. Then your bank made a mistake. Those checks weren't real. Grammy doesn't have that kind of money anymore. But what if? There is no what if. Jesus, Willow, this is exactly why you're still struggling. You believe in fairy tales. Grammy's confused, the check is fake, your bank will figure it out and reverse it. Don't spend any of it or you'll be liable for fraud. He hung up. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat on my couch refreshing my banking app like a woman possessed, waiting for the error message, the reversal, the correction that would prove Ryan right and me stupid. At 7:04 a.m. on December 28th, my account balance updated. $2,000, $184.23. I threw up in my kitchen sink. This was real. The check was real, which meant what? What did this mean? Patricia had $2 million and just gave it to me? After letting the whole family mock her? After watching Ryan tear his check to pieces? After watching Ryan tear his check to pieces in front of 40,000 people? I was pulling on jeans and a sweatshirt before conscious thought kicked in, just pure animal instinct that something was wrong. I needed to get to Connecticut, needed to see Patricia, needed to understand what the hell was happening. Lazarus protested the emergency road trip, but cooperated, her check engine light glowing like a judgmental eye as I pushed 75 up I-95. I tried Patricia's cell 6 more times, tried the landline, tried Mrs. Kowalski again. Everything went to voicemail or rang into emptiness. The panic that had been simmering since last night started boiling over into something that tasted like dread. I saw the police cars from the end of Patricia's street. 2 of them, parked in the circular driveway where Ryan's Tesla had been 4 days ago. Their lights weren't on, but their presence screamed emergency, tragedy, the kind of official response that meant something irrevocable had happened. Mrs. Kowalski was on the front steps, wrapped in a cardigan despite the cold, crying into a tissue. When she saw me, her face crumpled further. "Oh, Willow. Oh, honey." I knew before she said it. Had known maybe since that first unanswered call. "She's gone," Mrs. Kowalski whispered. "Yesterday morning. Peaceful," they said. "In her sleep." The world tilted. Gone. Patricia was gone. Had been gone while I was staring at my bank account, while I was calling Ryan, while I was throwing up in my sink because I'd somehow become a millionaire. "She asked me to give you this." Mrs. Kowalski pressed an envelope into my shaking hands. My name in Patricia's handwriting. She left it with me on Christmas Eve. Said, if anything happened, you got it first. A woman in a dark pantsuit emerged from the house, looking professionally sympathetic in that way that meant lawyer or funeral director. "You must be Willow Reed. I'm Dorothy Brennan, your grandmother's estate attorney. I'm so sorry for your loss. Patricia spoke of you often." I couldn't respond, could barely breathe, just stood there holding Patricia's final letter while police officers moved through her house and Mrs. Kowalski cried and my brain tried to process that I was rich and an orphan. And somehow, both of those things were Patricia's doing. "Perhaps we should talk inside," Dorothy suggested gently. "There are things you need to know." I followed her into Patricia's study on autopilot, sank into the leather chair that still smelled faintly of her perfume, something French and expensive that she'd worn since before I was born. Dorothy sat across from me, her face carefully neutral. "Open the letter," she said quietly. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly tore the paper. Patricia's handwriting covered a single page, each word precise and deliberate. "My dearest Willow, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've made a choice the others didn't. You kept the check. You deposited it. You believed me. Let me tell you what I did, darling, because by now you're confused and frightened and probably wondering if your grandmother had finally lost her mind. The checks were real. All of them. But there was only $2 million in the account. Total. Not each. It was a race, you see. First check deposited would clear. The rest would bounce. I set it up that way deliberately. I wanted to know who actually loved me, who trusted me enough to believe I hadn't lost my mind, who respected me enough to keep a gift instead of tearing it up on Instagram. Your brother destroyed his check on video in front of 40,000 people because he couldn't imagine I had anything left to give. Your sister posted about my senile moment before dessert was even served. Your parents couldn't leave fast enough to avoid the embarrassment of my confusion. You stayed. You helped clean up. You kept the check, not because you thought it was real, but because I gave it to you. That check was never about money, Willow. It was about seeing who my family truly was when they thought I had nothing left. And you, my darling girl, you were the only one who passed. The money is yours, no conditions, no strings. Build the life you want. Don't let them make you small. You were always the biggest person in that family, even when they treated you like you were nothing. I'm sorry I won't be there to see what you do with it, but I'm not sorry for the test. They showed me exactly who they were. I just wish it hadn't taken $2 million to see it. Live well, live freely, and remember, the Queen is the most powerful piece on the board. All my love, Grammy Patricia. P.S. They're going to come for you now. Let them try. The letter fell from my hands. Dorothy was watching me with something that looked like pity mixed with respect. She recorded a video, too, explaining everything, dated 3 days before Christmas. She knew exactly what she was doing. She was sharp until the very end. "They're going to lose their minds," I whispered. "Yes," Dorothy agreed. "They are. The will reading is scheduled for December 30th. I'd suggest you prepare yourself." I thought about Ryan's live stream, Vanessa's Instagram post, My parents' embarrassed exit, their absolute certainty that Patricia was confused, that the checks were fake, that I was an idiot for even considering otherwise. They destroyed their checks, mocked her publicly, called her senile. And I had $2 million. Oh, I said faintly. Oh, they are going to kill me. Dorothy's smile was thin and sharp. Patricia thought you'd say that. She also thought you'd win. Patricia's funeral was held on December 30th at St. Michael's Episcopal Church, the kind of old-money Connecticut institution where even the stained glass looked like it had a trust fund. I sat in the third row wearing the same thrift store blazer from Christmas Eve because it was the only black thing I owned that didn't have paint stains, watching my family perform grief like it was an Olympic sport. Ryan delivered the eulogy in a charcoal Tom Ford suit, his voice breaking at carefully rehearsed intervals. "Grammy taught us the importance of family," he said, gazing out at the assembled crowd of Patricia's bridge club and country club friends. "She reminded us that love isn't about material things. It's about showing up, being present, cherishing every moment we have together." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted copper. Ryan hadn't shown up for Patricia in 18 months, hadn't been present for anything except that disastrous Christmas Eve dinner where he'd torn her check in half and live-streamed her humiliation. But he looked good saying it. That was what mattered to Ryan. The performance, the optics, the way his voice caught on "we'll miss her every day," while his Apple Watch buzzed with notifications he tried to subtly check. Vanessa sat in the front row, 7 months pregnant, in a black Reformation dress that probably cost more than my rent, crying photogenic tears that her assistant, yes, she'd brought her assistant to the funeral, kept photographing from tasteful angles. I could already see the Instagram caption forming, "Saying goodbye to the woman who taught me everything about grace and dignity." Pigeon, broken heart emoji. "The woman who taught you about grace and dignity," I thought viciously, "watched you call her senile on social media with 45,000 of your closest friends." My parents sat stone-faced through the service, my mother occasionally dabbing at dry eyes with a handkerchief. Charles stared straight ahead like he was mentally reviewing quarterly reports. Neither of them had spoken to me since I'd arrived, though Diane had given me a look that could have stripped paint when she saw my blazer. Mrs. Kowalski sobbed in the back row, genuine and ugly and heartbroken. She was the only person in the church who'd actually loved Patricia in the unperformed, unglamorous way that meant showing up on random Tuesdays just to have tea. After the service, we gathered for the reception in the church hall. Finger sandwiches and coffee and people saying things like, "She had a good, long life," and "at least she didn't suffer." I stood in the corner holding a paper cup of weak coffee, watching my family work the room like they were networking at a conference. Ryan shaking hands, Vanessa accepting condolences with brave smiles, my parents receiving sympathy like visiting dignitaries. Nobody talked to me, which was fine, normal even. I was used to being the family ghost, present but not quite visible. What wasn't normal was the way Ryan's eyes kept finding me across the room, cold and calculating. The way Vanessa whispered something to Tyler that made him glance at me with open suspicion. The way my father's jaw clenched every time he accidentally made eye contact. They knew. Somehow they knew. Dorothy Brennan approached me near the dessert table, looking apologetic and lawyer professional in a way that made my stomach drop. "The will reading is scheduled for 3 o'clock at my office. Your family's already been informed." "Do I have to be there?" "Patricia specifically requested your presence." Dorothy's voice dropped to a whisper. "And Willow, brace yourself. This is going to be ugly." Dorothy's office was in one of those converted Victorian houses in downtown Greenwich that screamed old money law firm. Dark wood paneling, leather furniture that probably cost more than my entire apartment, framed degrees from Yale and Harvard on every wall, the kind of place where even the air felt expensive. My family was already assembled in the conference room when I arrived at 2:58 p.m., 2 minutes early, because my anxiety about being late was stronger than my desire to avoid them. Ryan sat at the head of the table like he owned the place, scrolling through his phone. Vanessa was touching up her makeup, phone propped up to catch the reading of Grammy's will content. Tyler looked bored. My parents occupied the chairs closest to Dorothy's seat with the entitlement of people who'd never doubted their right to be anywhere. I took the chair furthest from everyone, near the door, escape route already planned. Dorothy entered at exactly 3 p.m. carrying a leather folder and the kind of expression that meant someone was about to have a very bad day. Thank you all for coming. I'll keep this brief. Patricia's will is straightforward. The estate, the house, furnishings, and personal effects will be liquidated and the proceeds donated to the Alzheimer's Association and the local women's shelter. My mother made a small sound of protest. The house? But we assumed. Patricia was very clear about her wishes, Dorothy continued smoothly. Her jewelry collection goes to Mrs. Helena Kowalski, who served as her companion and housekeeper for 32 years. Her art collection will be auctioned, with proceeds split between the charities mentioned. What about her liquid assets? Charles asked, his lawyer voice sharp and impatient. Dorothy opened the folder. Patricia liquidated most of her assets over the past 6 months. She consolidated everything into a single account at Fairfield National Bank. Ryan leaned forward, suddenly interested. Vanessa stopped filming. Even Tyler looked up from his phone. The account contained exactly $2 million, Dorothy said, her voice carefully neutral. On Christmas Eve, Patricia distributed checks drawn on this account to each family member present at dinner. The fake checks, Ryan interrupted. Yeah, we know. Grammy was confused. That's why we're here to handle her affairs properly, since she clearly wasn't capable. The checks weren't fake, Dorothy said. The room went silent. I'm sorry? My mother's voice was faint. The checks were drawn on a real account with real funds. However, the account contained $2 million total. Not $2 million per person, $2 million, period. I watched understanding dawn across Ryan's face like a sunrise made of horror. It was structured as a race, Dorothy continued, relentless and professional. First check deposited would clear and exhaust the account. All subsequent checks would be returned for insufficient funds. It was Patricia's final test of her family. But we destroyed our checks, Vanessa whispered. We threw them away because we thought... The account was exhausted on December 27th at approximately 7:04 a.m. And her eyes flickered to me for just a second when Willow Reed's check cleared for the full $2 million. The explosion was immediate. What? Ryan's chair screeched backwards. That's impossible, Willow. What did you do? I deposited my check, I said quietly, my voice barely working. You knew! Vanessa shrieked, her Instagram perfect composure shattering into something ugly. You knew it was real and you let us destroy ours and you manipulated her. You manipulated a dying woman. I didn't know, I said louder now. I thought it would bounce. I thought you forged it, Ryan accused, his face red. That check was fake and you somehow forged Grammy's signature, convinced some bank to... The check was legitimate, Dorothy interrupted coldly. I have Patricia's bank records, the signed authorization, and a video she recorded 3 days before Christmas explaining her intentions. She was mentally sound and acting of her own free will. She was senile, my mother gasped. She didn't know what she was doing. We all saw it at dinner. You saw what you wanted to see, Dorothy said. Patricia was sharp until the day she died. Dr. Sarah Patel, her physician, conducted a full cognitive evaluation on December 20th. Patricia passed with perfect scores. She knew exactly what she was doing. This is fraud, Charles said, his voice dropping into that dangerous lawyer quiet. Elder abuse, undue influence. Willow had access to her, was alone with her after we left. I stayed to help clean up, my voice cracked. I didn't even think the check was real. Then why did you deposit it? Ryan demanded. Because Grammy gave it to me. Because even if it was fake, she wrote my name on it, and I couldn't just throw it away like it was garbage. How convenient, Vanessa spat. Poor little struggling Willow, barely scraping by, suddenly gets $2 million from her confused grandmother, and we're supposed to believe you planned this? I have video evidence, Dorothy said, her voice cutting through the chaos, of Patricia explaining her plan, of her distributing the checks, of all of you mocking her, tearing up the checks, posting on social media about her being senile. Would you like to see it? The room went quiet again, but this time the silence felt dangerous, like the moment before a bomb detonates. My father stood up slowly, his face carved from ice. This isn't over, Willow. We will contest this. We will prove you manipulated her, coerced her, took advantage of a vulnerable woman. She wasn't vulnerable, I whispered. She was testing you, all of you, and you failed. You stole from your own family, my mother hissed, and the look on her face was pure hatred. From your grandmother, from us, that money was supposed to be divided. That money was Grammy's to do with as she pleased, I said, finding my voice finally, finding some core of strength I didn't know I had. And she pleased to give it to the one person who didn't treat her like she was worthless. Ryan moved toward me, and I actually flinched, but Dorothy stepped between us. This meeting is over. If you want to contest Patricia's decisions, you'll need to hire your own attorneys. But I should warn you, Patricia anticipated this reaction. She documented everything. We'll see you in court, Charles said to me. Not to Dorothy, to me. Like I was opposing counsel instead of his daughter. We will destroy you for this. I left without responding, walked out of that conference room and down the stairs and onto the Greenwich sidewalk where my dying Honda was parked between a Mercedes and a BMW like an ugly duckling in a swan convention. My phone started buzzing before I even reached the car, text after text lighting up the screen. Ryan, you're dead to me. Vanessa, I hope you're proud of yourself, you manipulative bitch. My mother, don't ever contact us again. Unknown numbers, probably family friends, cousins, people I hadn't spoken to in years. How could you? Shame on you. Your grandmother would be disgusted. I sat in Lazarus with my hands shaking on the steering wheel, $2 million in my bank account, and not a single person in my family who would speak to me without a lawyer present. Patricia had been right. They were coming for me now, and I had no idea how to fight back. The siege began at 11:47 p.m. on December 30th, exactly 8 hours after the will reading, when Ryan's Twitter thread went live to his 180,000 followers. I was lying in bed and not sleeping, just staring at my ceiling and trying to process that I was both a millionaire and completely alone, when my phone started vibrating like it was having a seizure. Notifications flooded in so fast the screen couldn't keep up. Ryan's thread started with a photo of Patricia from Thanksgiving, looking small and frail in her chair, a photo I knew he'd specifically chosen because it made her look vulnerable. The caption read, "Today, I learned my grandmother was manipulated in her final days by someone she trusted. This thread is about protecting our elders. 1 of 14. My stomach dropped. He'd written 14 tweets, 14 carefully crafted, devastating tweets about elder abuse and family betrayal and the importance of cognitive testing for seniors. He never mentioned my name. Didn't have to. His followers did that work for him. Who manipulated her? One replied within seconds. His sister Willow, another answered, linking to my professional Instagram account that had exactly 847 followers and featured my design work. She's a graphic designer in Brooklyn who's been struggling for years. Sounds like motive to me. By tweet 7, Ryan had posted a screenshot of Vanessa's Instagram story from Christmas Eve, the one calling it Grammy's senile moment. He framed it as proof we were concerned about her mental state rather than what it actually was, public humiliation. By tweet 14, he was calling for justice, for investigation, for people to protect vulnerable seniors from predatory family members. The quote tweets were brutal. "This is disgusting. Elder abuse is a crime. That sister should be in jail. Anyone who would manipulate their own dying grandmother for money is a monster." I turned off my phone. Turned it back on. The notifications kept coming. Vanessa's Instagram video posted 20 minutes later and was somehow worse. She sat in her pristinely designed nursery, backlit by that influencer golden hour lighting, tears streaming down her face in a way that was definitely practiced. Her hand rested on her pregnant belly. A nice touch, really. The expectant mother protecting family values. "I'm shaking as I film this," she began, her voice quavering. "Today we found out that someone we loved, someone we trusted, manipulated our grandmother in her final days. Grammy Patricia wasn't herself at the end. We all saw it. We tried to help her, and someone took advantage of that confusion to steal from her, to steal from our family." She didn't say my name either, just held up a photo of Patricia and cried prettier tears than I'd ever managed, her 340,000 followers eating it up in real time. The comments were instant solidarity. "I'm so sorry you're going through this. Praying for your family. That person should be prosecuted." And then, because Vanessa understood social media warfare better than most military strategists, "If you want to help us get justice for Grammy, use hashtag justice for Patricia. Let's make sure the world knows what happened." By midnight, hashtag justice for Patricia was trending in Connecticut. By 2 a.m., it had spread to New York. By sunrise on December 31st, it was trending nationally, and I was the most hated person on the internet who nobody could technically name because of legal reasons, which somehow made it worse. My professional email inbox became a crime scene. I woke up, well, I didn't sleep, but I dragged myself to my laptop at 7 a.m. to find it flooded with messages. Some were from strangers who'd found my business email through my portfolio site. "You're a disgusting human being. I hope you rot in hell for what you did to that poor woman." That last one I reported to the police, not that I expected anything to come of it. The NYPD had bigger problems than Instagram vigilantes threatening a woman they'd never met. But worse than the death threats were the client emails. Positive vibes, organic dog treats. "Hi, Willow. We've decided to go in a different direction with our rebrand. Please consider our contract terminated effective immediately." The boutique hotel in Park Slope I'd been working with for 3 months. "Given recent circumstances, we no longer feel comfortable moving forward with your services." A startup that had hired me for their entire visual identity. "We need to protect our brand reputation. You understand." By noon on New Year's Eve, I'd lost 4 clients and $8,000 in projected income. By evening, 2 more had canceled. My professional Instagram, carefully curated over 5 years to showcase my work, was flooded with comments calling me a thief, a manipulator, a predator. I made the account private, but the damage was done. My personal Instagram was worse. I'd kept it mostly locked down, just photos of coffee and Bushwick sunsets and the occasional client project. But people found it anyway, left comments on photos from 2 years ago, dug through my followers to find anyone who might know me. One particularly dedicated internet detective found my Venmo and started posting screenshots of my transactions. "Look, she was clearly desperate for money. $15 payment request for pizza. She was broke and saw an opportunity." The fact that I'd been splitting pizza costs with my friend Madison was irrelevant. The narrative was set. I was poor, Patricia was rich and confused. I took advantage. Simple, devastating, viral. The lawsuit arrived on January 2nd. I was trying to work, or pretending to try to work while actually refreshing social media to watch my reputation burn, when someone knocked at my apartment door. Not the buzzer from downstairs, which meant they'd either tailgated another tenant or the lock was broken again. "Willow Reed?" The guy holding the manila envelope looked bored, like he served lawsuits to social pariahs every day, and this was just another Tuesday. "Yes?" "You've been served." He shoved the envelope at me and enveloped it before I could respond. The papers inside were thick, official, terrifying. Charles Reed, Diane Reed, Ryan Reed, and Vanessa Castellano, née Reed. The charges read like a crime thriller: undue influence, elder abuse, fraud, conversion of property, intentional infliction of emotional distress. They were suing for the $2 million plus damages, plus attorney fees, plus a public admission of wrongdoing and apology. The amount they were demanding totaled $4.7 million. I sat on my apartment floor holding those papers and realized I was going to need a lawyer I absolutely could not afford to fight a family with unlimited resources over money that was legally mine but morally complicated enough that a jury might side with the crying pregnant influencer instead of the broke designer nobody liked. Patricia had been right. They were coming for me now, and I had no idea how to fight back. The news outlets picked it up on January 3rd. Not national news, I wasn't that important. But the local Connecticut papers loved it. Prominent Greenwich family files lawsuit against daughter over inheritance dispute. The Greenwich Times ran it with a photo of Ryan looking appropriately concerned at some charity event. Then a blogger who covered influencer drama posted about it, and suddenly Vanessa's 340,000 followers were flooding to read about the inheritance scandal. By evening, it had been picked up by a few of those aggregator sites that rewrite local news for clicks. Tech executive's sister accused of manipulating dying grandmother. Connecticut family claims elder abuse in $2 million inheritance fight. Social media influencer speaks out about grandmother's suspected exploitation. My name was in most of them now, no more vague, someone we trusted. I was Willow Reed, 28, graphic designer, accused manipulator of confused elderly women. My phone rang constantly, reporters wanting comment, lawyers offering to represent me for a percentage, a true crime podcast wanting to explore all sides of the story. I stopped answering, let everything go to voicemail. The voicemail box filled up in 6 hours. My friends went quiet. Not all of them. Madison texted, "Holy shit, are you okay? This is insane." But when I tried to explain, when I said I just deposited a check Patricia gave me, that I hadn't known about the trap, her responses got shorter, more careful. The subtext was clear. She didn't know what to believe anymore. My college roommate, Jasmine, who had been friends with for 10 years, sent a message on January 4th. "Hey, I think we need some space. This is a lot, and I'm not sure I can be in the middle of it. I hope you understand." I understood. I understood that being associated with me was toxic now, that my family's PR campaign had worked exactly as intended. Even my neighbors started avoiding me. The guy in 3B who used to chat with me about his cat began taking the stairs when he saw me waiting for the elevator. The couple across the hall stopped making eye contact. Mrs. Chen from downstairs, who'd always been friendly, gave me a look of pure disgust when we passed in the lobby. "Shame on you," she hissed, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Stealing from your own grandmother." I stopped leaving my apartment unless absolutely necessary. Ordered groceries for delivery, skipped my usual coffee shop because the barista had given me a look that said she'd seen the news, avoided the bodega where I usually got my morning bagel because I couldn't handle another stranger's judgment. By January 10th, I was completely isolated. My family wanted me in prison. The internet wanted me destroyed. My clients wanted nothing to do with me. My friends had evaporated. Even my neighbors crossed the street to avoid me. I had $2 million in my bank account and not a single person who would sit in a room with me voluntarily. I sat on my couch on January 11th, laptop open to the dozens of news articles about what a monster I was, phone full of voicemails from lawyers and reporters and people telling me to kill myself, and realized I had two choices. I could give the money back, apologize, let them win. Prove that I was exactly what they'd always said I was, a failure who didn't deserve anything good. Or I could fight. I Googled defamation lawyer New York with shaking hands, tears running down my face, Patricia's voice in my head. "Don't let them make you small. You are always the biggest person in that family." I picked up my phone and started making calls. Jordan Kim called me on January 14th, 3 days after I'd left desperate voicemails with 7 different law firms that had all politely declined to take my case. Turns out when you're the villain in a trending hashtag, lawyers get nervous about association. Bad for business, bad for optics, bad for their own social media presence. Willow Reed, the voice on the other end, was sharp. No nonsense, female. This is Jordan Kim. I'm an attorney in Manhattan, and I've been following your case. Can we meet? I was so shocked someone was actually returning my call that I just said yes without asking all the normal questions like, how much do you charge? Or, are you real or is this an elaborate prank? We met the next day at a coffee shop in the East Village that was aggressively hip. Exposed brick, vintage Edison bulbs, a chalkboard menu that called coffee artisanal bean water. Jordan was waiting at a corner table, and she looked nothing like the lawyers I had grown up around. No power suit, no perfectly styled hair. She wore jeans, a leather jacket, and thick-framed glasses, her black hair pulled into a messy bun. She looked like someone's cool older sister, not someone who'd gone to Columbia Law. You look terrified, she said as I approached. Good, you should be. Your family is trying to annihilate you. I sat down, clutching my coffee like a life preserver. Why do you want to help me? Everyone else I called said it was too risky, too public, too likely they'd lose and look bad? Jordan's smile was sharp. Yeah, I'm not those lawyers. I spent 5 years doing civil rights work, suing police departments and corporations that thought they were untouchable. I don't take cases because they're safe. I take them because they're right. You think I'm right? I think your family is using their money and influence to destroy you for doing exactly what your grandmother wanted you to do. I think they're weaponizing elder abuse laws that are supposed to protect vulnerable people and turning them into tools for revenge because they're embarrassed they got outsmarted by an 86-year-old woman. Jordan pulled out a laptop. Also, I watched your brother's live stream from Christmas Eve. He's an asshole. I laughed. Actually laughed. For the first time in 2 weeks, something that wasn't crying. So here's the deal, Jordan continued. I looked at the lawsuit they filed. It's aggressive, it's expensive, and it's mostly bullshit. But they have resources. Your brother's company did $50 million in revenue last year. Your sister has brand deals worth 6 figures. Your dad's a partner at a white shoe law firm. They can afford to drag this out, bury you in discovery, make your life hell until you give up. I can't afford you, I said quietly. I had some money saved, but I've already lost most of my clients. And I'm taking this pro bono. I stared at her. What? Pro bono, no charge. I'll file for costs and attorney fees if we win, but you don't pay me anything up front. Jordan leaned forward. Here's why. I'm tired of watching rich people use the legal system as a weapon. I'm tired of seeing families destroy each other over inheritance when the real issue is that nobody actually loved the person who died. And I'm really tired of social media trials where the person with the most followers gets to decide who's guilty. But if you're doing this for free, I'm not doing it for free. I'm doing it because cases like this are how you build a reputation. When we win, and we are going to win, everyone's going to know my name. That's payment enough. Jordan's smile turned predatory. Plus, I really want to cross-examine your brother. He seems like he'd crack under pressure. What do we do first? We gather evidence. We build a case so airtight that when we walk into that courtroom, your family's lawyers are going to wish they'd never filed. And then we countersue them to next year. Jordan pulled up a document on her laptop. They're using their money to buy a narrative. We're going to use the truth to destroy it. Dorothy Brennan became our first stop. Patricia's estate attorney had been professional during the will reading, but when Jordan and I showed up at her office, she transformed into something fierce. I was hoping someone would fight back, Dorothy said, pulling out a file that had to be 3 inches thick. Patricia prepared for this. She knew exactly what they'd do. The notarized letter was first, the one I read at the estate. But this was an official copy with Dorothy's seal and signature. Patricia's explanation of the trap, dated December 20th, witnessed by Dorothy and a notary public. Legally airtight. But this is the real ammunition, Dorothy said, pulling out a USB drive. Patricia recorded this on December 18th. Took 3 takes because she kept getting emotional, but the final version is, well, you should watch it. Jordan plugged the drive into her laptop. Patricia appeared on screen, sitting in her study with that same mysterious calm she'd had at Christmas Eve dinner. She was wearing a blue cardigan, I recognized, her hair perfect, her eyes sharp and completely present. "My name is Patricia Eleanor Reed," she began. "It is December 18th, 2024, and I am of sound mind and body. I'm recording this to explain my final test for my family because I know they're going to claim I was confused, senile, manipulated. They're going to say I didn't know what I was doing. So let me be crystal clear. I knew exactly what I was doing." She explained the whole plan, the consolidation of assets, the single account, the checks distributed at Christmas, the race to deposit. "I'm tired of being treated like I'm already dead," Patricia said, her voice steady. "Tired of watching my family visit out of obligation, stay for an hour, check their phones the entire time. Tired of being someone they tolerate rather than love. So, I designed a test. Keep the check and you pass. Tear it up, mock me, post about my senile moment on social media, and you fail." Patricia's eyes glistened, but her voice never wavered. "Willow is the only one who still calls me, just to talk, who visits without expecting anything, who listens when I tell stories she's heard 100 times. She's the only one who sees me as a person instead of an obligation. The money is hers. I want that stated clearly. This is not manipulation. This is my choice." The video ended. Jordan and I sat in silence. "That's going to play beautifully in court," Jordan said finally. Dorothy handed over more documents. Medical records from Dr. Sarah Patel showing Patricia had undergone a full cognitive evaluation on December 20th, 4 days before Christmas Eve. The results were perfect. No signs of dementia, confusion, or impaired judgment. Patricia had scored 30 out of 30 on the mini mental state examination. "She insisted on the evaluation," Dorothy explained. "Said she wanted ammunition when they inevitably claimed she had lost her mind." "She really thought of everything," I whispered. "She had 6 months to plan," Dorothy said, and she was very, very angry at how they treated her. Jordan subpoenaed phone records next. It took 2 weeks and a judge's order, but when they came through, they told a story more devastating than any testimony could. Patricia's phone records from the 6 months before her death showed weekly calls with me, sometimes twice a week, calls lasting 30 minutes, an hour, once a 2-hour conversation when I'd called her crying about a client who'd ghosted me after 3 months of work. Ryan's last call to Patricia, September 3rd, 4 months before Christmas. Duration, 6 minutes. Vanessa's last call, October 12th. Duration, 4 minutes. My parents' landline to Patricia's number? Sporadic calls, none longer than 10 minutes, mostly around holidays. "This is a neglect," Jordan said, highlighting the records with savage satisfaction. "This is a family that couldn't be bothered to pick up the phone, now claiming they loved her so much they need to sue for her money." We built the countersuit like we were constructing a cathedral. Carefully, deliberately, with every stone placed to bear maximum weight. Malicious prosecution. They'd filed a lawsuit with no evidence, no merit, purely to harass and intimidate. Defamation. Ryan's Twitter thread, Vanessa's Instagram video, the #JusticeForPatricia campaign that had destroyed my reputation and career. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. The coordinated campaign to isolate me, threaten me, turn me into a social pariah. Jordan's filing was 63 pages of legal fury. We weren't just defending against their lawsuit, we were going on offense, demanding damages for lost income, emotional distress, reputational harm, demanding public retractions and apologies, demanding they pay my attorney fees. "This is going to make them very angry," I said when Jordan showed me the final draft. "Good," Jordan replied, her smile wolfish. "They want a war? Let's show them what war looks like." We filed the countersuit on February 2nd. I watched Jordan hit submit on the electronic filing system and felt something shift inside me. For 3 weeks, I'd been defensive, retreating, hiding in my apartment while my family controlled the narrative. Now I was fighting back. Ryan's response came within an hour, a text from an unknown number that just said, "You're going to regret this." Jordan's response to my panicked forward, "Screenshot everything. That's witness intimidation. We'll add it to the file." Vanessa posted an Instagram story that night, a photo of her ultrasound with the caption, "Can't believe I have to deal with legal stress while pregnant. Some people have no shame." Heartbreak emoji. The comments were predictably supportive of her. But for the first time, I saw some pushback. Wait, didn't she post about her grandmother being senile? That seems harsh. Why would she post that on Christmas Eve if she was so concerned? Something about this whole thing seems weird. Small cracks. Tiny doubts, but cracks nonetheless. Jordan noticed too. The narrative is shifting. Slowly, but it's shifting. People are starting to ask questions. Why did they destroy the checks? Why did they post publicly? Why did none of them call their grandmother for months? Will it be enough? I asked. For court, absolutely. We have evidence. They have emotions. Evidence wins. Jordan's expression turned serious. But Willow, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get worse before it gets better. They are going to escalate, say terrible things, try to break you before we ever get to trial. Let them try, I said, and for the first time since Christmas Eve, I actually meant it. Patricia had left me more than money. She'd left me proof. She'd left me truth. And with Jordan beside me, I was going to use it. The courthouse steps on the morning of March 15th looked like a social media activist convention had collided with a daytime TV taping. At least 40 people held signs, professionally printed, not hand-drawn, which told me exactly who organized this. Justice for Patricia Reed. Elder abuse is a crime. Protect our seniors. One woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a Lululemon catalog was live streaming to her phone, narrating my arrival like I was a war criminal. "That's her," she announced to her followers. "That's Willow Reed, the woman who allegedly manipulated her dying grandmother." Jordan squeezed my arm. "Eyes forward, don't react. They want you to look guilty." We pushed through the crowd, their chants following us up the steps. "Shame, shame, shame!" Like I was in some twisted Game of Thrones episode where the crime was depositing a check my grandmother gave me. Inside, the courtroom was packed. My family occupied the front row on the plaintiff's side like they were attending a wedding where they were the guests of honor. Ryan in another Tom Ford suit, Vanessa in demure cream-colored maternity wear that screamed innocent victim, my parents flanking them like bookends of disappointment. Their lawyer, a silver-haired man named Harrison Whitmore from one of Connecticut's most prestigious firms, looked like he charged $800 an hour just to think about you. We took our seats on the defense side. Just me and Jordan. No family supporters, no friends in the gallery, just us against them, which honestly felt about right. Judge Maria Santos entered, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who'd reportedly spent 20 years as a prosecutor before being appointed to the bench. She looked at the packed courtroom with the expression of someone who'd already decided this was going to be a long day. "Let's begin," she said, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "Mr. Whitmore, present your case." Whitmore stood with the gravitas of a man used to winning. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward case of elder abuse and undue influence. Patricia Reed, 86 years old, in declining mental health, was manipulated by her granddaughter Willow Reed into signing over $2 million. We will show that the defendant isolated Mrs. Reed from her family, exploited her confusion, and engineered this so-called gift for personal gain." He called Ryan first. My brother took the stand, looking appropriately devastated, his expression the perfect blend of grief and righteous anger. Under Whitmore's gentle questioning, he painted a picture of a loving family concerned about their grandmother's deteriorating condition. We noticed changes, Ryan said, his voice breaking slightly. She'd forget conversations, repeat herself. We were worried, but she refused to see specialists. And then Willow... He paused, looking at me with what I'm sure the jury thought was betrayal. Willow was always there, always alone with her. We didn't realize until too late what was happening. And the checks distributed on Christmas Eve? Whitmore prompted. It was heartbreaking, Ryan said. Grammy handed out these checks thinking they were real. We tried to gently explain that she didn't have that money anymore, that she was confused. His voice cracked convincingly. I even recorded it, thinking maybe if she saw herself later, she'd understand. But Willow encouraged her, told her the checks were fine, and then she deposited hers. It was a masterful performance. I'd give him that. Vanessa went next, 8 months pregnant and glowing with martyrdom. She brought physical props, printed Instagram posts, text messages, photos of Patricia looking frail and elderly. She cried on the stand, talked about how much she'd loved her grandmother, how devastating it was to watch her decline. I posted about it on Christmas Eve because I was scared, Vanessa said, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. I thought if I documented what was happening, maybe someone would help her. Maybe Adult Protective Services would intervene. I never imagined Willow would actually exploit the situation. Whitmore entered her Instagram post into evidence. The Grammy senile moment story, now reframed as concerned documentation rather than public mockery. My father testified last, cold and clinical. He was the legal mind, presenting facts and timelines. Patricia's financial losses, her age, the, quote, suspicious consolidation of assets, Willow's financial struggles, and clear motive. My daughter had means, motive, and opportunity, Charles said, like I was a stranger he was analyzing rather than his child. She visited frequently, alone. She had Patricia's trust, and she was desperately in need of money. By lunch break, I felt sick. They'd built a narrative that sounded almost plausible if you didn't know the truth. Concerned family, declining grandmother, desperate granddaughter. It was clean, simple, wrong, but compelling. They're good, I whispered to Jordan. They're expensive, Jordan corrected, but we're better. And we have something they don't. What? The truth. Jordan's smile was sharp. And your grandmother's voice from beyond the grave. Now watch me work. Jordan started with Ryan's cross-examination, and I watched my brother's confidence evaporate in real time. Mr. Reed, you testified that you were very close with your grandmother, correct? Yes, we were very close. When did you last call her? Before Christmas Eve, I mean. Ryan hesitated. I'm not sure of the exact date. Let me help you. Jordan held up the phone records. According to subpoenaed phone records, your last call to Patricia Reed was September 3rd. Does that sound right? I may have called from other numbers. These records show all incoming calls to your grandmother's cell and landline. The last call from any number associated with you was September 3rd, 4 months before Christmas Eve. Does that seem like very close to you, Mr. Reed? I was busy with work, too busy to call your allegedly beloved grandmother even once during the holidays, but not too busy to live stream yourself mocking her to 40,000 people. Objection, Whitmore stood. Argumentative. Sustained, Judge Santos said, but her eyes were sharp on Ryan. Rephrase, Miss Kim. Mr. Reed, why did you live stream the check incident? I thought people should see what was happening, that Grammy needed help. Or did you think it would be entertaining content, funny to show your tech industry followers how your senile grandmother was handing out fake checks? Ryan's face flushed red. I was trying to document. You destroyed your check on camera, tore it into pieces and dropped it in your water glass. That's not documentation. That's mockery. The courtroom was silent. Ryan had no response. Jordan moved to Vanessa next, and my sister's Instagram perfect composure started cracking almost immediately. Miss Castellano, you posted Grammy's senile moment on Instagram within minutes of receiving your check, correct? I was concerned. The caption was, "Grammy had a senile moment at dinner tonight," with a laughing emoji. Does that seem like concern to you? I was processing. People process differently. By making your grandmother's alleged mental decline into content for your 340,000 followers before you'd even finished dinner? Vanessa's jaw tightened. I talk about everything in my life on Instagram. It's my platform. Including your grandmother's death? You posted an aesthetic crying photo at her funeral, didn't you? Before her body was even buried? Objection! Whitmore was on his feet. Relevance. It goes to the witness's credibility and her actual relationship with the deceased. Jordan shot back. I'll allow it, Judge Santos said quietly. Jordan showed the courtroom Vanessa's funeral posts, the artfully lit photos, the professionally captured grief, the sponsored content she'd posted 2 days later for a maternity brand with the caption, "Finding light in dark times." You monetized your grandmother's death. That's not, I needed an outlet. You needed content. When did you last visit Patricia in person, Miss Castellano? I was pregnant. Travel was difficult. The phone records show your last call was October 12th. 5 months pregnant, not exactly bedridden, but too busy to call the grandmother you loved so much you're now suing over her money? By the time Jordan was done with cross-examinations, my family looked less like concerned relatives and more like exactly what they were, entitled people, angry they'd been outsmarted. Then Jordan played Patricia's video. The courtroom went silent as Patricia appeared on screen, crystal clear and devastatingly present. She explained the trap, the test, the heartbreak of being treated like she was already gone. This is my final gift to my grandchildren, a mirror. I want them to see who they really are, who actually loved me, who saw me as a person worth respecting, even when they thought I had nothing left to give. I heard my mother gasp, saw Ryan's face go white. Vanessa was crying, but not Instagram pretty tears. Real, ugly, devastated tears of someone realizing they'd been caught. Willow calls me every week, just to talk, to hear about my day. She doesn't want anything from me. She never has. She's the only one who still sees Patricia, not just Grammy, the obligation. The money is hers. My choice. My test. My love. The video ended. Judge Santos sat back in her chair, her expression unreadable. Dr. Sarah Patel testified next, professional and unshakable. Patricia Reed had full cognitive function until the day she died. I evaluated her on December 20th at her request. She scored perfectly on every test. She was one of the sharpest 86-year-olds I've ever examined. Is there any possibility she was confused or manipulated? Whitmore asked on cross. None whatsoever. Patricia knew exactly what she was doing. She told me explicitly she was testing her family. Those were her words. I'm testing them. This was premeditated, intentional, and completely sound. Judge Santos called a recess. When we returned an hour later, her expression had shifted from neutral to something harder. I've reviewed all evidence presented, and I find the plaintiff's case to be without merit. Patricia Reed was of sound mind. The video testimony, medical records, and documented communications make that abundantly clear. This was not a case of elder abuse. This was a case of a woman making an informed choice about her assets and her family being unhappy with that choice. My mother made a sound like she'd been slapped. And furthermore, Judge Santos continued, her voice hardening, I find the coordinated social media campaign, the public accusations, and the filing of this baseless lawsuit to constitute malicious prosecution and defamation. The case is dismissed with prejudice. Additionally, I'm awarding the defendant $150,000 in damages and ordering the plaintiffs to issue public retractions on all platforms where accusations were made. The courtroom erupted. Ryan stood so violently his chair fell backward. This is insane! She manipulated! Mr. Reed, I suggest you sit down before I hold you in contempt, Judge Santos said coldly. Vanessa was sobbing into Tyler's shoulder. Her phone, which had been subtly recording, knocked from her hand by Jordan's accidental gesture as we stood. My father sat frozen, his lawyer face cracking into something that looked like genuine shock. My mother was crying, but quietly, like she'd learned to do everything, with perfect control. "This court is adjourned," Judge Santos announced, and stood. Jordan grabbed my arm. "We need to leave. Now." We pushed through the courtroom as my family sat in ruins behind us. Outside, the protesters were confused. Had we won or lost? Jordan was already on her phone, releasing the statement we'd prepared. I didn't look back. Not at my family in the courtroom, not at the protesters on the steps, not at the life I'd spent 28 years trying to fit into. Patricia had given me more than money. She'd given me permission to walk away. And I was taking it. So Patricia used $2 million to expose who her family really was, and honestly, brilliant. If you've ever dealt with family members who only show up when there's something to gain, or who perform love for the cameras but can't pick up the phone, drop a comment with your story. Hit subscribe if you're tired of watching toxic people play victim when they get caught. Like this if you think Willow deserved every cent. More stories like this coming. Turn those notifications on.